Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil. I'm Shawn DeKnight, and we've got a fill-in in the big chair today, Assistant Sheriff for Administration Ron Cave. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Shawn. I'm glad to be here.
Would you tie the sheriff up so you get to sit at the desk?
No. Sheriff is much better at this than I am. I've done it now. This is the second time, so no, he's far better.
He's on official business today.
Yes.
So we've got a big topic today. I think this is one that resonates with a lot of our viewers out there. In some way, most folks have encountered something as it relates to financial fraud, someone trying to take their money or their identity.
Absolutely, and I think really all of us has probably gotten a phone call saying, either there's money waiting for you, you just need to pay some tax on it, or here's a transfer fee, or here you're wanted and you got to turn yourself in unless you pay $1,000 or something. So absolutely.
There's some clear red flags that are out there. If you listen, you can catch it. And our folks have been very diligent about being proactive and telling the public about that. How important is that messaging in the process?
Absolutely. Well, we got a great team that investigates these crimes and are proactive, like you said, in getting the message out. And I think that's the key, is informing our citizens, making sure that they're aware of some of these scams that's out there, and being diligent, and knowing too that we're always here for them if they have a question or something just doesn't quite seem right.
Yeah, so those are the things we want to pay attention, and we're going to really open that bag up today. We've got one of our financial crimes detectives here today to talk a lot about income tax fraud and also the Casanova scam. Now, I know, you and I, we've got we're not young bucks, so we've heard of the phrase Casanova before.
Yes, we will, and I'm sure she'll explain a little bit further as to what that is too.
Yeah, that's a nice tease, nice segue. So be sure to stick around, everyone. We've got more details on financial fraud investigations and what you need to know to protect your money and identity. But first, let's check in with Sergeant McMillan with our Crime Tip Tuesday.
Hello everyone, this is Sergeant Shade McMillan with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, and here's today's Crime Tip Tuesday. With the cooler weather upon us, it is a good time to get out in the yard and make sure your landscaping also deters thieves. Here are some tips for target hardening your home through landscaping. Plant short, thorny bushes, shrubs, or cacti under all windows. Keep all trees and shrubs trimmed. Shrubs should be below 3 feet tall, and tree branches should be at least 6 feet from the ground. Avoid planting a tree line near the street. They make great hiding places. Use gravel under windows, walkways, and driveways to hear footsteps. Stay safe out there.
Joining me now is Detective Mary Pilkanis with our Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Pilkanis, it is officially tax season, which is prime time for financial fraud. How are scammers prying on tax filers?
It is tax season. Happy tax season. We see there's two primary ways that people are getting contacted to get scammed. First of all, they're getting phone calls. So they'll either call and pretend to be an IRS agent or just another official to try and get your information. They'll say that your Social Security number has already been compromised, or that there's a threat of it being canceled entirely. And the second, I want to say the more traditional way now, is over an email. So you'll get an email from something that looks legitimate from the IRS or from another state agency, or even a big box store such as Amazon or PayPal, and there'll be a link in there to click on there to get your information.
And criminals are really creative. I mean, they'll put logos and they'll see a portion of the legitimate business in the email address. I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some key points that our citizens need to be aware of?
So I would say just be vigilant as far as that logo goes. Are the colors the same? Or is the spelling the same? Is the spacing between the letters the same? They're going to do everything that they can to make it look legitimate. If you go to your email and you hover your cursor on the sender, it'll show the full email address. So look at that, because you'll see extra characters and letters, or it'll say info.amazon.com. Well, that's not Amazon.
Right. And generally speaking, the IRS is not going to be communicating with you by an email. For example, if it's a tax fraud, they'll be sending you an official correspondence to your official address.
Yes, in the mail.
Right. Okay. So what are some other common things that are out there today that may be newer trends that are going around?
I wouldn't call them newer. They just pop up periodically. So the current one, we actually have someone pretending to be a deputy sheriff. They're telling our citizens that they missed a court date and they didn't pay a traffic fine, and so they want a Venmo transaction or a wire transfer or gift cards to get rid of the warrant or the fine. So that's our current thing. We also have an issue with contractors that are going around and advertising work and people pay them for work and then they won't actually do the work, or they'll do part of the work and then never show up again. And that's different than just a bad employer, but we have people that are doing it systematically to like multiple people. Are popular scams.
So it kind of goes back to never pay somebody for work that's not done yet, and do your research as to who's going to be doing work with you, and just
Absolutely.
being vigilant there. Are there any sites that people can go to, or resources that we can provide information to, so there's a better awareness out there? As far as, like for example, I know the Department of Business and Professional Regulations is one site that you can go to and look up and see if there is if they are in fact a legitimate contractor.
Yes, you can also go to sunbiz.org, and that's where it's public, so you can look and see if someone has a legitimate license as well. So that's another website. And then just talking to your friends and family and finding out who they've used. And any person that you're asking to do a job for you should be able to provide references, and that's another way to vet someone.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. There's a tremendous amount of people out there that want to do others harm and take advantage of you financially. Do you see a disproportionate number of elderly persons impacted by these, or is it kind of across the board, everybody? So?
Yeah, unfortunately, people are targeting our elderly population, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but traditionally they have a harder time with computers and technology, and they're more likely to believe someone that reaches out with something like a family emergency or a big bonus for money.
Right. Well, and two, they suspect, older population might have more money available, or who knows.
Yes.
And you mentioned Venmo as one. A lot of folks don't even know what Venmo is, but it's basically a cash, online cash transaction where you can transfer money and all. I wanted to circle back on the IRS and the tax, fraud issues. Where can people go if they think that they might be being victimized by some type of fraud related to tax? Where do you go?
The first place that you would go is to the irs.gov website, because they would be the ones to handle primarily all the tax fraud. But you can also report it to your local agencies, whether it's the Tallahassee Police Department or also the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, all right, fantastic. And so they can always reach out to us if there's any questions. And certainly irs.gov is a great resource to see. But and then going back to what we talked about earlier, generally IRS is going to communicate with you through the mail and not call you up, and certainly not say that you're going to be arrested for that.
In the event that you do get a phone call, always question the person if they have a supervisor, what's their badge number or their work email, and then you can also say I'll call you back later, and then call the actual IRS or the actual Sheriff's Office or Police Department, and to confirm that person's identity is another good way.
That's a great tip, in contacting the known public source or the information, the phone number, or sending an email to the actual organization like the Sheriff's Office or IRS. So fantastic. Thanks, Detective Pilkanis. Coming up, February is also known as a month of love, and some scammers can be real Casanovas. Stay tuned. We're back with Detective Mary Pilkanis with our Financial Crimes Unit. Detective, let's talk a little bit about how some scammers target lonely or vulnerable people in our community. We talked a little bit about kind of how Casanova scams are out there. Let's talk a little bit about that, and what is Casanova? Folks may not even know that.
Yeah, for our younger audience, a Casanova is someone, it can be a man or a woman, who is really good with the language of love. And so they're really good at seducing people into making them think they want a legitimate relationship with that person, when in actuality all they want is money in the end. So unfortunately these people, we see them on all sorts of social media dating websites. We see them on Match.com, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Hinge and Bumble and Tinder, and all the popular social media dating sites they're on, and they're looking for that person who just wants love, and they just want or friendship or devotion. And so they'll reach out and they'll start a relationship with this person, and then they'll start asking for money. It'll usually start out small, like $20 for gas, or I lost my debit card, can I spare $100 for dinner? And then they'll gradually get to larger amounts. Like they need money for plane tickets to actually come visit you or to be with you to finalize the relationship. So then they start asking for more and more and more until they just, drain the person of all their funds.
So how can people prevent being victimized in that scenario that you talked about there? Because it's not like they can call the Sheriff's Office and say, hey, is this person that's on social media
Right.
dating site, is that a legitimate? I mean, what's some preventative measures that can be undertaken?
I think kind of like with any scam, it can be summed above, if it's too good to be true, it's probably could be too good to be true. Someone that you've never met in person, you should never send money to. The person will be reluctant to meet you in person. They'll be reluctant to FaceTime. They'll be reluctant to call you over the video chat. Now, we have some people that will do phone calls, but even those are just to kind of relieve some of that suspicion that you're having, but inevitably they won't be able to meet you in person because there's some type of emergency that prevents them from doing so. Unfortunately, we also see people that pretend to be in the military, and they'll say, oh, well, the military sent me to Europe or to Africa or to Canada, and now I'm stuck here because they won't pay for my plane ticket home. The military, like, they always get our service members home. Like, we're not going to abandon someone in another country. So that's another big flag to look out for.
Yeah. So there's a story that I've been told about where a Florida man was indicted after posing as a doctor and was out there on dating sites and swindled some $750,000 from 21 women. How often do you see these types of cases out there?
Unfortunately, pretty often. So the FBI reported to them, they had approximately 24,000 cases reported to them of scams that had romantic factors in it. As far as the sheriff's office goes, we approximate between 15 to 20% of our cases have some element of a romance or a friendship factor involved.
So you've given us a lot of good information about various scams out there, but if you're suspected of being victimized, how do you report it, and what do you do, and what do you go about, and what type of information do we need as law enforcement to be able to fully investigate it?
So if your scam is purely online, say you got an email or you found like a bogus website and you were scammed that way, the best resource to do is to go to ic3.gov, which is operated by the FBI. They have an online submission form, just like similar to we do on our website, and you can report that scam directly to the FBI and they will look into your complaint. If your scam is anything else, so say like a phone call or a text message or someone showing up to your doorstep and being scammed, you can always report it. If you're in the city, then you would call the Tallahassee Police Department, and then if you're in the county, then you report it to us. And then we'll do our due diligence and do the best we can to try and find that person. And hopefully they live in our area, and unfortunately, a lot of these suspects don't live in our area. They live outside of the United States or just elsewhere in the country. So in the event that it happens in another jurisdiction, then we'll transfer that case to the other jurisdiction and just pray that the suspect is in the United States and not overseas.
Yeah. What about if you use your credit card in any of these transactions? Is there anything that can be done there, or do they contact their credit card company?
Yeah, the first thing to do is to contact your bank institution or the credit card company, whichever applies, and have your card shut down as soon as possible. You want to notify them of the fraud because most companies will reimburse you for those charges. And then the second step is then to follow up with a report either to whatever jurisdiction. Now, if your card was, say, used in Kansas, but you never lost your card, you're here in Leon County, you would need to call Kansas or that jurisdiction, whatever city the charge happened in.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And again, thank you, Detective. Coming up, preparing for the worst, our Deputy on Duty segment goes behind the scenes with our training unit. Stay tuned.
Number 7, lower circle. Hot range.
Training never stops. Training is one of those things. We have roll call training. We have a computer-based system, our DMS system, that we're constantly rolling out. Roll call training, videos. We're constantly staying up on the state statutes, and quite honestly, in my section, we are constantly looking at situations that happen both here and around the country, and we look at it from a standpoint of saying, how can we do that situation different, better? How can we not quite honestly repeat mistakes that have been made here and elsewhere? And so we're constantly striving to make ourselves and to become better at what we do. No matter, we're not resting on any laurels. We don't sit back and beat our chest and say, hey, we're great. We are continually trying to do better. And quite honestly, our sheriff demands that from us, and he pushes us to be better. And so that's one of the things that kind of, the one thing that I love about what it is we're doing here. We're simulating shooting from the car, sudden assault, just like been recent deputies and police officers have been attacked while sitting in their vehicles. So we're teaching the officers to displace their head off the headrest and to be able to address the threat with their handgun from the seat of the vehicle, dismount the vehicle so that they can address any other threats that need to be addressed outside of the vehicle. Fortunately, we had the ability to take a car that's no longer in service and take the engine out of it and take the glass out of it, so it makes it a little more safe.
Shooter, stand by. Threat.
Downrange.
Keep coming back, back, clear, right? Transition.
I've been teaching at the academy a long time, so a lot of my former recruits that I've taught at the academy have been hired both here at Leon County Sheriff's Office and other places. So I think, one, it kind of makes me realize I'm getting old, and but I have realized that I've been able to see a lot of my former students to literally see a legacy from being a teacher and an instructor. The thing I love is to see that see these folks grow up professionally right before my eyes, literally, and that I continue to be able to have some impact on them. It's an intense, the whole process for a deputy become a road deputy is probably about 6 months long. And then our corrections deputies are the same. They go through very similar programs, and being able to save life and limb, and defensive tactics, being able to defend themselves and make sure that we can do it in such a way that we minimize injury to both the officer and an individual we may have to deal with. They will also go through scenarios, and which those scenarios would be how would you handle this? And we want to see how they handle it. It is very delicate. It takes a lot of repetitions. It costs, but it also takes not only the physical repetitions, but it takes the mental repetitions. And that's something, the scenarios are something that our deputies can continue to read over and play over in their head, and through the roll call trainings and everything that they do on a daily basis, that is the best way that we have found to be able to train people to be good decision makers. The focus on de-escalation is one of those things that we are absolutely, we have to really look at that, because there are times that we have to show force, but that doesn't mean we have to use it. We're trying to de-escalate from the minute that encounter starts. We are training our deputies to look for opportunities to de-escalate and to have a peaceful resolution. The scenarios were, quite frankly, you're faced with a situation, but when that person de-escalates, we de-escalate as well. We also have to be able to, if that person escalates, we need to be able to escalate at a level that we can keep the situation under hand. And then if they're successful, then they move forward into an in-house program that is right now 6 weeks. And that's an intense training of all of our high liability operations, driving, defensive tactics, firearms, all those things that are high liability. And then we sit them down in the classroom. We teach them our computer systems, how to complete reports, CPR, first aid, and all of those things that we really use day to day, and you really got to be good at. We want the community to be able to see that we are training hard and that we do have a true love for our community, and we want the best for our community as well as our deputies and their families. All of us are creating what we want Leon County to be, and that's a great thing. It's not just the sheriff's office. It's the sheriff's office, it's the fire department, it's the police department, it's all of our community partners together. We're all doing the same thing. We are all trying to be the best at what we're doing, and doing it for the best of what we want for our community.
Welcome back to Leon County Today with Sheriff Walt McNeil and Assistant Sheriff Kay filling in, doing a wonderful job today. So we just heard from our training unit and our Deputy on Duty segment talking about the importance of being prepared for any scenario. You know, people don't think a lot about when our deputies go to a scene. They have no idea what they're going to encounter. You've taught at the academy for a long time in that training process. How important is that?
Oh, it is absolutely important in training our staff, both law enforcement and corrections. And I've actually served in both roles. I've been a correctional officer and a deputy. And like you said, I've taught at the academy since 1999. And what amazes me is that how much training for law enforcement has evolved, which is a good thing.
Yes.
It's evolved so that we are able to now try to be prepared to deal with the multitude of people that we have to encounter. And no more is it just arrive on scene and arrest everybody. It's really trying to dissect and deal with the pertinent issues. Mental health is a huge issue in our community and all over really the country. Homeless population, those not sheltered. And so trying to train really in dealing with the diversity of issues is so very important. And the sheriff talks a lot about being a world-class agency.
Yes.
And that starts with training from day one.
Absolutely. And the consistency of that. You know, some people might think that, you know, once you become a deputy, you're done with the training, but this is an ongoing process.
Oh, absolutely. So every year you have certain things that you have to have training, and then every 4 years to keep your certification, your law enforcement and your corrections certification, you have to have a certain number of courses, a certain number of hours. And legislatures are always looking at different things to add. This year they're talking about adding some more mental health training to train law enforcement and how to deal with that segment of the population. So it's certainly a ever-evolving point in law enforcement and corrections, but it's very important.
It is important indeed. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We'll hopefully get to see you again soon around
All
here.
right. Thank you, Shonda.
Thanks a lot. And thank you all for tuning in for another episode. We'll see you back here next week.